All right. Welcome everyone to our wonderful panel today about employee resource groups and kind of their business, being a business resource for organizations. I'm here today with four amazing panelists. I'm super excited to engage all of them with a conversation, about the importance of employee resource groups, in particular, what they're doing with their Latino ERGs at their, respective, organizations. We're going to have a free flowing conversation. We're going to talk about a lot of topics, address a lot of areas. But the goal ultimately is to provide all of you who are listening today with some key insights and maybe even some tips on what you can do at your organizations to elevate the impact and performance of your employee resource groups today. We're going to talk about a variety of things, and maybe what I would like to start about is talking about, first of all, maybe the Hispanic segment. You all are with very strong organizations, very well-known brands. I love to hear a little bit more about what role the Hispanic consumer plays maybe in the business strategy of your organization. John, I probably have known you, the longest. You're doing some great things at Anheuser Busch. Is the Latino segment part of the consumer strategy at Anheuser Busch?
Very much so. We actually have a plan that is to win with Hispanics. And the one data point that we like to kind of mention that in 10 years, one out of every two LDAs or legal drinking age consumers is going to be of Hispanic or Latino descent. So it is critical to our business and to our future.
All right, great. And Geronimo, same thing with P&G. Great, strong consumer packaged good organizations. I'm assuming you want a lot of Latinos to buy your products.
Absolutely. At the core, we have a responsibility to lead category growth. So fundamentally, we look into markets and see what segments of the population are responsible for the growth. And in the US, unequivocally, that is the multicultural consumer. And within the multicultural consumer, the projections we have over the next 10 years is that the majority of that growth will come from Hispanic communities.
Absolutely. I often tell the organizations I work with, and I tell them, hey, if you don't have a Latino strategy, you don't have a growth strategy, right? Because it's such a growing segment. One more question before you get to you, Camila. Robert, financial institutions, do you want more Latino kind of Latinos, leveraging your banking institutions and financial organizations?
Absolutely. Out of your mouth to our CEO, Andy Cesari's mouth, was in Hispanic Heritage Month. He used those words. Without a growth strategy for Latinos, there is no growth strategy for the company. So last year, we launched U.S. Bank Access Commitment, which is our long-term approach to help close the racial wealth gap and build wealth for diverse communities. We started with the Black segment, as it historically has the largest gap. But this year, we are expanding to include the Hispanic community. Based on Latino employee feedback, as an example, last year we launched the U.S. Bank Voice Assistant in Spanish, and that's Asistente Inteligente, the first financial institution in the U.S. to offer this service. Is this important? Absolutely. Hispanics are important to our business lines.
Absolutely. Well, and one more thing before we get to specific things your Latinos ERGs do. Camila, tell me, Nielsen is a highly respected organization, and lots of companies go to your organizations to get insights on Latino consumers. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Nielsen does to help organizations with that information?
Yeah, so for Nielsen, audience is everything. If we don't have representative data and we don't represent the audience that we measure, we won't have correct data to share with our clients to make the best marketing decisions. So it definitely is at the forefront of Nielsen's strategy.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, so now that we've kind of made that point that Latinos are a catalyst for economic growth, for organizations, John, anything in particular that your Latino ERG does at Anheuser-Busch that really helps the company connect with Latino consumers? Anything you can share?
Yeah, so we participate. There's a group or an organization within our company called the Culture Collective, which is actually a collective of ERG leaders representing all of our different communities. And we participate and we look at brand content, any programming for our marketing programs to ensure that they connect with our community in an authentic way. And one example, we actually were working with a team that was looking for potential partnerships for production companies. And we kind of highlighted the Latinx House. That is an organization that did an event at the Sundance Film Festival. And we actually sponsored their event there, which was kind of cool to see that our kind of input was actually executed on the field.
No, and that's why representation matters, right, John? Because had you or maybe somebody else on your Latino ERG not been in that group, that organization maybe not have come into the conversation. Excellent. Geronimo, anything specific your Latino ERG does at P&G to help connect with Hispanic consumers?
Well, I want to double down first on the point that you just made about representation matters. Representation is critical. If you do not have the ability to gather insights that represent our communities, you're going to have a very difficult time creating holistic propositions that are relevant. So that is a completely integrated representation push where you have to drive it internally, having proper representation across the critical functions and levels in your company. You have to have representation with your vendors. You have to have representation in your communication. So all of it is included. And I would say that it becomes at its core the modus operandi for our ERGs. We just went through a strategy renewal where we have grouped our activity systems into 4 fundamental pillars: recruiting, talent development, and sense of community. And all of them are fueled by communications. And communications is a very important element because you have to help your allies within the company understand what you're doing. You have to get your internal employee Hispanic community fired up and excited and see the possibilities. But you also, particularly in P&G, given our role as a big advertisers, we have to use that megaphone to tell the story of the progress that is being made and the help that's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And Geronimo, if I could say with you for a second, do you find, does the company come to your Latino ERG for those insights, or do you like go knocking on the door and say, "Oh, Mira, we're here to help"? How does that connection happen within the company?
It is a phenomenal question, and it's, I think, at the core of the evolution of ERGs and the level of maturity. So I can tell you a little bit of where we were and where we are. Where we were was very much a push model. I've been knocking at doors of all the general managers of our businesses with other senior Hispanic executives and selling the case for change, the size of the prize, the business need. Today, we're in a different state of the journey where every one of our business has identified and self-selected a senior Hispanic leader to be part of our ERG. And then we become a steering board that has functional leadership and business leadership. And I think that model is frankly the way to go.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Love it. Robert, tell me a little bit about the Latino ERG at US Bank, and what specifically do you do to help the bank get more Latino consumers?
Absolutely. I mentioned the access commitment. We know that as we expand that to Hispanics, we can't do the same thing. We are different with our opportunities and challenges, and so we need to address that differently. This commitment does touch every business line, from retail banking and small business to wealth management and payments. The BRG is brought in anytime we are needed to react to a new marketing campaign or product. And what's especially important is to provide feedback and advice from the Latino perspective, that cultural perspective. Our BRG helps guide the company on cultural elements to make these initiatives truly authentic, meaningful, with intended impact. Thank you.
Yeah, and of course that's really important, right? I'm Mexican American, and what resonates with me, being a Mexican American born in the U.S., it may not resonate with my wife, right? She was born and raised in Caracas in Venezuela and came here to the U.S., right? So I think having those cultural insights, are absolutely critical. So thank you for sharing that. Camila, I'm going to pivot a little bit because I think we all understand the importance that Latinos, play to a company's consumer aspect from a bottom line perspective. But, we'd be remiss without talking about the importance of having Latino talent and Latino professionals well represented either. Can you tell me a little bit about the Latino ERG at Nielsen? What sorts of things do they do to maybe help the company more effectively recruit and retain Latinx talent?
So our OLA BRG, Hispanics Organization Leaders in Action, we focus on 4 pillars, programming pillars. So advocacy, education, community, and business. And I would say the biggest role that our OLA BRG has is creating a community, a sense of community for those that are in the organization and retaining those employees. Unfortunately, we aren't super tied to the talent acquisition piece of it, but we do influence it when and where possible. And so for us, it's really important to retain the talent that we have and promote within, create those career development opportunities, and that BRG is really essential to doing that and creating a spotlight.
And thank you for sharing that, Camila. It's funny. I was talking with an organization not that long ago, and their company came to them, the Latino ERG, to help them with a recruiting challenge. To say, hey, we can't recruit, Latinos effectively. We can't find them, and I'm so glad that the Latino ERG was there, because what they were able to find, because they partnered with the Latino ERG, was that the company didn't have a recruiting problem. They had a hiring problem, which is something altogether different. And without that Latino ERG to provide that perspective, they would have been trying to kind of almost fix, the wrong issue. So very critical. So thank you for sharing that, Camila. Robert, I think, we've connected in the past regarding, development, how it's important to accelerate the upward mobility and promotional velocity of Latinx Hispanic professionals. Can you share maybe what the Latino ERG at US Bank does to help kind of get Latinos into more senior level roles?
Well, we know by involvement in the BRG, employees exponentially increase their opportunity for mobility. But I am really excited about this question, Dr. Rodriguez, because last year we piloted a best-in-class Latino development program called Hispanic Leader Enrichment and Advancement Program, or LEAD. This involved 20 high potential participants, their managers, cultural awareness, and skills development. Dr. Rodriguez and your book, Authentico, both played a key role in our program, and we're grateful for the impact your leadership brought to our Latino talent development. Several BRG leaders were part of the initial cohort, and as part of the capstone project, there was a lot of work involved in this. We pitched our research and ideas to senior executives across the company, which are going to be used as part of that access commitment expansion for Latinos. So it's important and it's great work. Thank you for your help.
Well, I was honored to be a part of it. And I may be a bit biased, haven't been part of the program, but realistically, haven't been a part of many companies' Latino leadership, programs. It's definitely was one of the better ones, most comprehensive ones I've seen. So kudos to you. John, Robert mentioned something that I think is important, and that is kind of visibility and exposure, right? A lot of times, we can be doing great work in our day job, but if folks don't know who we are, it's hard to get, selected sometimes for those key roles. So can you outline how being involved in a Latino ERG may help some of your members get noticed and show up on the radar of senior executives?
Yeah, for us, it's kind of twofold. So one of the things that we do is kind of these lunch and learns to help our employees and our members to kind of feel seen. So like from taking or bringing in subject matter experts regarding personal branding, negotiation, about power up your communication, even to LinkedIn, like rock your profiles, is like their personal branding. So that is, again, gives them that sense of being seen, but then also they have access to senior leadership. So all of our ERGs have MyCom members or sponsors. So these are sponsors from senior leadership within our company that sponsors each one of our ERGs. And we have quarterly meetings with them discussing our plans and any roadblocks we're hitting. But we're always visible with senior leadership as part of the program.
And John, to keep it personal, how has being involved in the Latino ERG helped you in your kind of career growth, would you say?
For me, I've been with the company 19 years. And for the most part, again, I mentioned before we started the conversation, I'm a first generation immigrant. I was born in the States, but my parents were born in Peru. And a lot of the stuff that we learned culturally about, keeping your head down, just focus on work, I think was to the detriment of my career, because I felt like I couldn't speak up. I shouldn't promote myself because you don't want to be cocky. So there was a lot of things culturally I felt that being part of an ERG kind of get me to think out differently. And because of that, I think I've been able to be seen as a leader within my company. I don't know if I would be where I am if it wasn't for the ERG.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. Personally, when I was in corporate America, I worked at some very large organizations myself, and when I was at one point a member of an ERG myself, president and executive sponsor. So I know firsthand, of just how impactful being involved in a Latino ERG can be. You know, Geronimo, we mentioned about how ERGs help with kind of visibility and exposure. We spoke a little bit about, very formalized leadership development programs like Robert shared at US Bank. But what do you think, how, because we get a lot of our members are always busy, right? Just like you are. And sometimes it's tough to get them engaged. It's tough for them to maybe take on a leadership role. What do you tell someone to say, hey, taking on a leadership role in the Latino ERG can help you from a career perspective? What do you tell them to convince them of that?
A couple of things I will mention here, Robert. It's, first of all, a great question. Again, the way we're structured from an ERG standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, is we're facilitating the delivery of critical programs. But the programs end up being managed and run by task force, where our younger executives, our young professionals that have a lot of energy, passion, and desire to make a mark are supported by the more senior managers, where we naturally provide that mentorship, that sponsorship, and visibility. So you see it in recruiting, where our young managers not only support, call it core schools, but they also then create their own recruiting teams to go to Hispanic serving institutions that are maybe farther away from the Midwest, but that have tremendous talent, and then through their storytelling, create the case for why should a Latino from Florida, from Texas, consider moving to Cincinnati, Ohio. That's a hard sell, but it's much easier to do when you have firsthand experience and you're seeing and experiencing the benefits from that support. Second is community involvement. We specifically look at creating programs that are going to not only support the local community, but by result, get our young professionals to connect and network together. And that is fundamental because it does help with that retention piece that we were talking about that's so critical, and get you over the, call it the 5-year hump, no?
Yep.
And then ultimately, we end up having every year an annual event, all Hispanic managers and their managers and the top senior executives of the company. We call it Latinovation, where we highlight the biggest success stories and fuel and enable replication. And that is a fantastic visibility forum. You can imagine the energy and the recognition you get when you are nominated, and then you get to share your work with the company leadership.
Yeah, I love the idea. And Camila, you all held something a few years ago, something similar, where you brought a lot of your Latino A players together. I think it was down in Florida. I had the privilege, of speaking of that. But can you build on what Geronimo shared? That being involved in a Latino ERG helps you to be part of a community. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so as the program manager for BRGs, for me, it's super important recruiting new leaders. And we often get that question of, my bandwidth is limited. I don't have time. Why should I invest? And for us, we always sell the point of 3 things. Number one, it gives you exposure to senior leaders in the organization. The way that we have our leadership structure, we have it so that our operating committee, our top executive leaders, are sponsors of a BRG. In addition to that, we have SVP and VP, or SVP and above, as executive sponsors to accompany them. So if you are a BRG leader, you're getting exposure to leaders that you wouldn't otherwise get. And that's an opportunity that's really invaluable when you're growing your network. Yeah. So that's one of our main selling points. Our second selling point is that you get a leadership opportunity that you may not otherwise get in your other roles. So your day role may be behind spreadsheets, you're not connecting with clients, you're not connecting with others in the organization. And so having that opportunity to either ideate, execute programs, manage a team of BRG leaders, it gives you that experience that you can carry in your day responsibilities and add to your resume that you may not otherwise get the opportunity to do in your day role. And the third one is community. So I think we all know that if we don't feel that we belong or we're included in the organization, that can drive our motivation down. So our BRG, we really give them that space to create a community and create that sense of inclusion and belonging. That's really important when you're at a company.
Yeah, I love that. And what you shared, Camila, was music to my ears. I remember when I joined the ERG early on in my career, I was an individual contributor, and once I took on a leadership role at the Latino ERG, now I was developing a strategy. I was managing a budget. I was leading a team. I was rubbing elbows with all these folks that I didn't know. And I was still delivering at my day job, but it just helped, supplement my experience and my capabilities, and actually helped me to get a sponsor that was really critical to my kind of upward mobility at the company. So, I love what you shared. I think it really resonates with all of us. Robert, kind of, building on this kind of culture piece, right? Companies often rely on Latino ERGs to help build awareness about Hispanic culture and cultural norms. Anything that you can share that U.S. Bank is doing to help, just elevate cultural awareness about the Latino community within the company?
Well, I think it's important. We've had a lot of structural changes post-COVID. Last year, we changed to a global board for the Nosotros Latinos that oversees and overshadows the local boards and the local participation, making it more in-person, providing more networking, more connectivity, similar to what Camila just said. And with that and through that process, it's brand new still for us. This is the second year. We're seeing that percolation of ideas, the sharing of best practices, and really that focus of providing that Latino voice in our markets locally, as well as then globally with the management, like Camila has just referenced. And so it's an important voice, it's a valuable voice, and we're seeing that synergy come together as we've expanded and grown and developed in this kind of new frontier of global versus local. So you got to continue to make change to keep pace with what's going on in the world.
Yeah, love that. And I have a question for any one of you, so feel free to any one of you to jump in. But for a lot of our non-Latino allies, sometimes they don't know a lot about us, right? They sometimes they don't know that being Latino is an ethnicity, right? So they'll say things like, "Oh, you don't look Latina," right? Because they just don't know, right? Or they'll assume that, "Oh, Robert, you're all Mexican, right?" We're not all Mexican, right? Or they think we all speak Spanish. Some of us do, some of us don't. Some of us speak Portuguese, right? Some of us are unapologetically proud to be Latino. Other ones, it's not a big sense of our identity. So can any one of you share what your Latino ERGs do to help just elevate that awareness within your company about the diversity of our community? Anybody?
I'm happy to take that.
Go ahead, Camila.
One of the initiatives that our BRG started was Mi Casa es Tu Casa. And so what that program is intended to do is share the experiences of Latinos in the organization through different circumstances, situations, or experiences. In 2019 or 2020 during COVID, we had a segment for DACA recipients. And so that was I would say a really monumental panel that we had, because a lot of our allies understood the perspective of a DACA recipient being in corporate America, going through that experience. And it broke down a lot of barriers of understanding that you may not otherwise get when you're in your day-to-day work meetings. And so that's something that our Ola BRG continues to do, is those type of programs that really speak to experiences.
Yeah, it provides a much more textured understanding of our community. Absolutely. Anybody else? Anything to share that you're doing to help elevate cultural awareness within the company?
And add to Camila's comments. Go ahead, Geronimo.
Okay. I'll add an effort that we've been running for the last year and a half. It's all around the importance of having culturally relevant communication. And for us as a large advertiser, it's a very crucial element of our marketing mix. Superior communication helps deliver brand growth. So how do we do that? We have to help the organizations, every category, understand what are cultural traits, what are Hispanic values, and how those help you go deeper into finding relevant insights that ultimately can be translated into authentic communication and over time build resonance. So it is not a one and done. We definitely have created the library of understanding, and we're constantly updating it with best practices of businesses that are applying it and creating new case studies. But it is a constant. And then on top, we're educating our Hispanic managers on the material so they can then become ambassadors and advocates within their own businesses. And as a result, also sort of build some equity and visibility to their expertise.
One thing, and let's just keep it real. And John, maybe if you wouldn't mind taking this one, because of the diversity in our community, there is such a thing as intra-Latino divides, right? Sometimes the blonde hair, blue eye Latinos, may look, differently at Afro-Latinos. Someone who's fluent in Spanish may, look down on the Latino no habla español. Someone would say, oh, you're from Mexico. I'm from so-and-so country. Oh, you immigrated here. I was, so there's that diversity in our community can create that divide. So what does the Latino ERG do to help to kind of bring our community together? Can you share what you do at Anheuser Busch?
Well, our goal as an ERG is to create a community. We do have had panel discussions where we did bring different kind of speakers to speak of different experiences. So we were lucky enough to have Jason Rosario to participate in a Black History Month event representing like the Afro-Latino experience. We work with other ERGs as well to show the intersectionalities because, again, we're not a monolith. Depending on where we come from, our number of generations we are, socioeconomic, there's so many differences and nuances, but there's a lot of things that connect us. And our ERG is kind of trying to find those points that connect us all so we can have a sense of community at the company.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Geronimo, anything to add to anything you're doing at P&G to help strengthen that community of Hispanics?
We've done two things. We're taking basically a dual approach. One is we're partnering externally and helping bring some of the outside data in. So partners like Nielsen or the Hispanic Star, We're All Human, they are great connectors and they're able to help us understand the differences across different elements that make your Latino Hispanic identity, race, country of origin, level of assimilation, generational, like all of these things have a lot of nuances that you have to be mindful of so you don't end up with a vanilla brush stroke to everything you do. And that's very important. At the same time, there are increasingly clear signals that they are very strong unifiers. Our values are so clear and they're so strong and so consistent with what we see as the management and leadership of the future. Leaders that have courage, resiliency, and heart. And we are great prototypes of that model.
Yeah.
And then the second thing within that is we all are in America because of the possibilities, the great opportunities. So when you frame the conversation about what can you do to help Latinos have equal access, equal opportunities, equal training, equal opportunities to be successful, then you have a platform that really can travel across your internal efforts and what you're trying to do externally to support communities.
Absolutely. And like we said before, we talked about Latinos are a catalyst for economic growth. Well, the Latino community, particularly here in the U.S., we're their next great source of intellectual capital, right? The workforce of the future is going to have an increasingly Latino identity, right? And I think what you just shared, Geronimo, helps to kind of amplify that fact as well as create that more nuanced sense of insight that companies need to help create the conditions that will nurture the success of this segment. John, we a lot of times, Latino ERGs will play a role in helping a company select nonprofit partners, whether it's Hispanic Star or We Are All Human Foundation. Anything you can share that you do at Anheuser-Busch with regards to your Latino G and helping them select their nonprofit Latino partners?
Yeah. Not only do we help them find new partners, but we actually help them amplify like their current partnerships. So we have longstanding partnerships with HSF, where we kind of are now helping kind of elevate and amplify what we do with them in recruitment. We also find new potential partners like with ASE, the NHCC, and Hispanic Star, which was one that I believe 2 years ago we started working. And part of that also that we do with these nonprofits is we hold campaigns within our company for during Hispanic Heritage Month, that all of our donations that we do are matched by the company. So
Oh, wow.
we're our kind of our ERG is always involved with those conversations.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know,
That's a great. But
Go ahead.
I wanted to add one
Please.
additional comment to this, if you don't mind, Doctor. For us, it's been two things that have been really enabling that I think are good lessons in the journey. The first one is, how do you organize your nonprofit support in a way that's consistent with our CEO speak? And the framework is very clear. It's the Sustainable Development Goals. And within that, if you think about Hispanics as an individual country, you can literally track and measure where the biggest gaps are. For us, it became, given that information, an obvious choice. We are going to find ways to support Hispanic communities by promoting better education, better health, better gender equality, and higher paying jobs. They're all very interdependent with each other, but that creates a lot of focus, and it gives us that umbrella where then our brands, family of brands, can find the swim lanes that connect their equity and the winning aspiration with something that we know is going to really resonate with Hispanic communities. So that was a very important piece. Mm-hmm. And then the second one, inspired very much by the Real Human Foundation, was the idea that you have to create allies. These alliances for impact are critical. National, regional, local level, private, public, non-for-profit. And it cannot be that you're constantly competing between a forest of options and spreading yourself too thin. So the challenge for all of us is going to be, how do we bring these big alliances for impact, which is hard. It's going to require an evolution in all of us, where we're not competing with each other, but actually joining forces for bigger impact.
Yeah. And to build on what you just shared, oftentimes I've seen Latino ERGs be approached by the companies to say, hey, which Latino nonprofit should we partner with? Should it be SHIP, ASE, ASER, NHCC, Unidos US, We Are All Human. And oftentimes the Latino ERG will help the company determine a selection criteria. So depending on what we're looking for, these are the ones that we should partner with. So another way to kind of help with that. Camila, oftentimes I see Latino ERGs are good at measuring their activity, right? We have this many members, this many chapters, we held this many events, this many people showed up. That's good. It's a good start. But anything that you can share about, how ERGs can measure the impact and not just the activity that they do?
So that's always a tricky one, since most DE&I work, we base it off of the qualitative efforts versus quantitative. Mm-hmm. One thing that my team does is we track the leadership and membership outcomes, and metrics throughout the year, trying to track what progress has been made on a leadership level, what career developments they've had, and being able to really track that impact. Tracking the programming metrics is helpful, knowing how many programs you're putting out there, what the attendance is like, but really measuring what that impact is through reviews. So we actually send reviews and feedback forms after the events to really have a qualitative feedback on what those sentiments were for programming.
Love that. Yeah, and I'm starting to see a greater use of things like scorecards and dashboards as a way for not just Latino ERGs, but all ERGs to kind of measure that impact. So thank you for sharing that. We have about 90 seconds left. So I want to give each one of you a chance to just kind of any final words of wisdoms or tips for any of our listeners who are kind of helping to elevate the performance of their Latino ERGs. John, maybe start with you. Any final things to share?
No, only thing I would share is to join your ERG, but not only join the one that you identify in, join the other ERGs, become allies, because only when we come together will we actually make a change in our companies.
Yep, absolutely. Love that. Geronimo?
I like to summarize everything as it's a construct around leadership at multiple levels. At the highest level, you need company sponsorship. So a senior executive at the highest rank needs to have skin in the game and be the fundamental sponsor of this work. Then you have to have business leaders who can be the voice of their organization unit in the ERG, provide requirements and needs, but at the same time, be the bridge back with best practices and opportunities. And the third is, how do you create programs, facilitate programs, enable programs that create the opportunities for the young aspiring leaders to demonstrate their leadership? And if you have those three things down, only good things are going to happen.
Yeah, love that. Great advice. Camila, any final words?
I would say maximize your BRG opportunity that you have, whether it's in a membership or leadership capacity. Oftentimes you get out what you put in. So really leverage those networks, leverage those leadership opportunities. And as John mentioned, join BRGs that you're not a member of to really learn and educate yourself about other communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all for being a part of our discussion today. Unfortunately, we lost, Robert a little bit due to a bad connection, but we've all enjoyed being the subject of your grace and favor. Hopefully those of you, on the call who watched today and listened today picked up some great tips. Kudos to all of you who are going above and beyond your day jobs by being involved in the Latino ERG. You're probably making a bigger impact than you realize. So on behalf of myself and the panelists, we hope you have a great rest of the Hispanic Promise event, and we look forward to being a resource for all of you again in the future. Take care, everybody.